Hey, what is going on? My name is Kai, and I've been working on a live set using my Synth and my Moog. I'm convinced that this amount of gear, one Groovebox and one synth, is ideal for performing electronic music live. I'm going to tell you why, and I'm going to give you some tips to make this setup work for you. In my experience, having too much gear means less individual control over each part, right? Like, I've had a setup where I had like a drum machine and this synth and an Axis Virus. And you could get like some really good sounds, but it was hard to get all of the things to do something dynamically together. Like if you wanted to transition to something else, you'd have to hit a bunch of buttons and change the patch everywhere. Limiting yourself to just a Groovebox and just a synth allows you to have the raw sound quality and dynamic performance potential, you know, of a hardware synthesizer, but also the sequenceability of a Groovebox. This can be doing 8 or 12 tracks in addition to what you're doing over here. You kind of get the best of both worlds. The first part of this video is going to be 5 general tips, ideas, guidelines that I've figured out for getting the most out of this combo. And then the second part of this video is going to be examples, specific examples from my live set, specific moments, walking you through how I've applied those principles. And I also want to say that generally this is going to be applicable to most Groovebox synth combos. It's not necessarily Synth, Moog specific. These ideas should apply to whatever setup you have. And then one final note about what I have going on here. I got MIDI going out from the Synth into the Moog, and I got audio from the Moog going back into the Synth. Yeah, so without further ado, my first tip is to lean into your synth. If you're bringing this thing with you, you're setting this up, make this a focal point of your sound. I don't think it's worth it if you don't do that. The big attraction of having this guy with you is the sound quality and the performability that you get from it. So you want to lean into that sound, build your set around whatever your external synth sounds like. In my case, the Moog is really fat. You know, it can dominate a lot of the frequency range, so that might mean using a few more supportive sounds rather than lead sounds on the Synth, just to give this space to make everything fit nicely together. Tip number 2, perform with your synth. If you have something that has knobs on it or a keyboard with it, play a few notes. Twist that filter a little bit. It looks cool as hell, which is not the entire point. More importantly, it creates a dynamic sound. You're interacting with it. You know, it's engaging to watch, it's engaging to listen to, and you should play with your synth when you can. Tip number 3 is to try and use a synth patch over here with a wide sweet spot. I think it's good to sit on a patch for a while, explore that sound to its full potential, and build a track on your Groovebox that kind of supports that. So like this patch that I start out my set with, it can be really soft, and then later on, you know, it can get a bassy, right? It sounds good muffled. It sounds good wide open. It sounds good with vibrato. It sounds good with pitch bend. It's very versatile. It can cover the full frequency spectrum. And throughout the first few minutes of my set, I'm trying to explore the sound as much as I can. I'm going to show you an example of that later. And this also combos with the last tip that I was talking about. If you're twisting knobs on your synth, you want all those things to sound musical. So if you have a resilient synth patch, not one that needs to have every knob in the right position to sound good. If you have a patch that if you can, you know, jack the resonance, jack the drive, bring the filter down, bring the release in for a second, get it really staccato, fat and low, and then bring that back up, you know, calm it down a little bit, you can have a much more engaging performance. And people will kind of go on this journey with you because there's some continuity, right? It's the same sound, but it's different. It's evolving over time, and that's cool. Tip number 4 is think like a DJ, and before you start typing, hear me out. I think that thinking of your set in terms of songs and mixing to another song can provide a nice framework. It can bring something familiar to an audience who hasn't seen the synth set before. Oftentimes, I will use like a single patch for a song. I'll explore this patch like I was talking about. So once that is done and I feel like I've created, you know, something discrete and complete, then I might create a transition patch on the Synth where it allows me to maybe bring the filter all the way down down on whatever patch I was using so it kind of drops out, transition somewhere else, select a new patch, bring the filter back in or whatever I need to do on the synth over here, and depending on the sequences and stuff that I have set up on the Syntact, it can feel like that we have smoothly transitioned from one piece of music to another, but also not. Because we have such freedom to write whatever music we want on here, we're not limited in the same way the DJs are either. I start a melody kind of in song 2 that's really the heart of song 3, but I use it in song 2 for a while, and then I change the sound on it, and then I develop it further in my third song. That's something a DJ couldn't do. You know, they can bring in elements from the next track that they're going to do by crossfading and kind of notching something out, and that's awesome, but we can bring it even further. And so I guess what I'm kind of saying is that you want to think of your set, or at least I find it helpful to think of my set in terms of discrete chunks. It allows me to kind of formulate a rise and a fall, like an arc for each of those. I can also think about ratcheting up tension over time or dropping it out in terms of the overall set, depending on what each of those types of songs is. And also it's a great practice tool because you could practice just song 3 or just song 7 or whatever's giving you trouble instead of just drilling the whole set over and over again, which is where I've kind of gotten stuck in the past. Tip number 5 is to use effects and compression to make your synth sound blend well with your Groovebox sounds. My favorite way to do this is to take the audio out of your synth, feed it right into your Groovebox, and use the same onboard effects that you're using for the rest of your tracks on your synth sound as well. It's going to make it sound like that this is in the same world as the rest of your sounds. If I give you an example here, this is a really dry sound right now, but I'm using these effects. This is my sequence going. You can hear there's a lot of reverb on there. So you can hear that now. And so that same reverb and delay is on all the other sounds. This is the intro to my set. And so if I bring this back in, and you can hear those same sounds are on the Moog now. If I bring them out, you can hear how out of place it sounds. It's not horrible, but it's missing something, right? If we bring these back in. Right? Sidechain compression can help as well. I don't have a real sidechain compressor on the Syntact, but I am using the effects track with like this audio ducking on every quarter note, and it achieves the same effect. So I'll show you now. This is a sound maybe about halfway through the set that I have so far. And you can hear that pulsing. If I take the effects track off, it's just flat. Sorry. It doesn't feel super glued together, but when I put that fake sidechain on, it's in there, right? Now you got a vibe. So little tricks like that, in the box effects, can go a long way to merging this sound with this sound and making everything sound like it's a song together. All right, I'm gonna hop into my set now. I'm gonna play through some parts of it and talk over it, hopefully tying some of those ideas that I mentioned earlier in the tips into practical examples. So without further ado, let's start at the beginning. So I kind of start with fading in this smooth, calm sound. And I'm going to stick on this sound for a while, so I want to mainly highlight how I'm evolving the sound over time. But for now, I'm just using a lot of the filter. Using that to kind of cue up a transition by swelling the filter. You know, bring in some other parts of the song. Add a little more tension with the filter. Now we can perform. do whatever you feel like you need to do here. But I like to throw in a little bit of performance up front. And I usually bring the filter up a little bit, and I bring out a couple background elements to let this stand on its own. Cue in the pattern again. I'm going to go for another transition here. So after you've let a dancey section go for a while, go to a more quiet section here. Bring that filter back down again. You can create a real sense of build by just moving the filter. And now it's the bass sound, or like a bass lead sound more than it used to be. And so also what's going on in the syntax here is the effects you can see here and here. The delay and the reverb have come down quite a bit to allow this sound to be a little bit more sharp. So we can build this track more, work your filter, whatever you want to do here. This is kind of like one of the final ideas I want to express. So I'm going to head over to a transition. Now this is kind of the moving on of the pattern. We have this descending arp. It's a little less interesting than what was coming before, but I'm also going to use this sound for a while. And so just kind of massaging a little bit on our way out here. And now, we're about to go into a transition. And I'm going to make sure to mute this track here, along with a few other ones. And so you can hear it kept that descending arpeggio, but it's just a different sound here. It's a little bit softer. And we can go ahead and start to bring in some new elements. And now I'm kind of moving into another patch, or another song. I haven't brought in a new sound here yet, but I'm going to prepare for it. Change the sound of my Moog, set the filter about where I know I need it. And there we go. Now it feels like we're in a completely different song. Do a little performance with the filter here. And so on this song, I want to talk a little bit about getting this synth to play nicely with this Groovebox. As talked about, we have that sidechain, that fake sidechain, which you can hear when I add it in. It cleans up that low end, gives it a bouncier feeling. And now I'm actually going to use a different filter to shape the lower frequencies here of the synth. I'm on the FX track. Because I'm routing the synth here for sidechain, I can also use the FX tracks filter. And now we're in another groove. And this is actually interesting, because we have kind of like a multi-part melody going on. This is doing some sounds, and then I have a couple other sounds that are creating this slightly disjointed, a little bit glitchy, complex melody. So I'll pull out some of those sounds here so you can hear them. This is kind of the sounds that I would say are making up the core groove. So this is the Moog. Heavy sidechain. There's another sound added on top. These play a little bit syncopated. They're a little bit on top of each other, but they're a little bit not. And then this sound comes in and fills out a little bit of a gap. So there's sort of something always playing. Anyway, that's kind of a difficult instance of getting this sound to play nicely with the other sounds, but that sidechain helps a lot. Making sure they're not stacked on top of each other helps a lot. All right, I'm gonna show you kind of the last part of this song, and I'm gonna show you how I use a melody new to song 2 right here at the end to transition out into song 3, and then I'm gonna show you some of the powerful potential of having a playable synth, because I really feel like me jamming on this is what makes song 3 pop off as hard as it does. At least I think it does. All right, so let's go. This da 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 da. That's coming back. That's new on this pattern 11 here, but it's kind of the backbone of song 3. So I brought it in song 2, something a DJ couldn't do, but you can do with sequencing. And then I'm gonna transition the sounds. So watch. So we basically don't have the Moog anymore. I can even mute it here. And I'll go ahead and use this opportunity to change the patch. Take a few of these things out. And there we are. We're in a new song, but we kept that same melody. We transitioned it to a different sound. And now we can do some fun stuff. Some very simple playing. This is a paraphonic patch, meaning I get this huge sound. Mess that up a little bit, but that's okay. So a lot of easy things for me to, my brain's going crazy. I'm just gonna let this play for a second here. What I'm trying to say, there's a lot of easy things for me to twist on this synth that make the sound cool. Make it muffled. Do some pitch bend. You know? This mod wheel just makes it sound really fat. And then because it's paraphonic, I can play something here and keep the main melody going. You know? And it's very interactive, it's very dynamic, and if I didn't have this sidechain going on here, it sounds messy and almost too big, but when I put this on, it tames this and makes it fit in with everything else that's going on over here. You know? And it's very, very fun because you kind of, if you're even a decent keys player, you almost can't screw up this pattern. It's just D minor going up and down. It sounds sick as hell, and it's pretty much just all tricks. I'm not doing anything complicated really. It's filter twisting, it's mod wheel going, it's pitch bending, it's everything like that, but it makes it sound really cool, and I'm very pleased with it. This is as far as I've gotten in my set. You can see the full like 12 to 13 minutes that I have so far in the work in progress video. I really got to figure out what to do with the solos because I'm just kind of winging them right now. I don't know if I need to like come up with a part to play or if I should just practice a lot more. The solos aren't hitting how I want them to yet. Where I'm going from this, generally I started at 100 BPM, and so I've been kind of ratcheting it up over the course of this first little bit. I want to get into house music territory. I'm going to get there pretty soon. I have ideas for this set to go on for an hour, so I feel like I could get up through some pretty interesting kinds of music. I feel like raising your BPM is just a really easy way to create movement in your set and make sure that you're having new rhythms and new sounds. Yeah, I'm having a blast with my Syntact, with my Moog, with them in concert with each other. This is kind of the goal that I've been working towards for a while. I made a set with just this. I've been screwing around with this for years. I've been playing piano for longer than that, but now it kind of feels like I'm putting my skills together. I hope that you are finding this useful, and if you're interested in doing stuff like this too, definitely leave a comment down below. Let me know what kind of gear you got. Link me to your sets. It's been an absolute pleasure. Keep making music. I'm gonna keep making music. Peace.